Hello, friends, and welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report. I am Tom Downey, here to keep you guys updated with what's going on around the Browns. Today's video is all about a potential contract extension for star running back Nick Chubb. Now, USA Today, the Browns Wire to be exact, laid out a potential extension, what it might look like, and they suggested using the Derrick Henry contract as the model, as the template to get Nick Chubb paid and to not jeopardize the Browns too much long term, given the not great recent history as it relates to running backs getting paid in the NFL. Their suggestion was around a 4-year, $50 million deal, includes an out after the 2023 season. So, not that bad. Also, is it good enough, though, for Nick Chubb? Because in 2020, and admittedly, a 12-game sample size, and not being the full-time number one back right there because Kareem Hunt was also heavily involved. Nick Chubb was profoundly efficient. To get 1,000 yards on less than 200 carries is very difficult to achieve, and yet Nick Chubb did that with some room to spare, by the way. He was the best running back on this team. Now, as a receiver, Kareem Hunt was a little bit more involved in that capacity. Chubb's pass-catching value was limited in 2020, although he's shown in the past that he knows how to catch the football and can do that. Now, the Browns have already extended Kareem Hunt, who also says he wants Nick Chubb to get paid because, teammates, running backs make sense, right? The money, though, is where things start to get a little bit interesting. Now, the Derrick Henry model is $12 million per year. That was his deal, a little bit more for Nick Chubb. I get that. It is, at least in terms of the running back position, that is the exception to the typical rule as it relates to contracts. In general, for pretty much every other position outside of fullback, I guess, the next guy up, if you're one of the best players at your position, you normally get, if not top 5, top 3, or top 1. I think that's how it normally goes. Nick Chubb getting the $50 million over 4 years that was suggested would put him top 5, would put him behind Dalvin Cook, behind Ezekiel Elliott, behind Alvin, Kamara, and McCaffrey. Now, Chubb was way better last year than Zeke Elliott was. So it would be a bit of a team-friendly deal if Nick Chubb were to do that, although he would be adopting the Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones method. He wants to get paid by his current team versus trying to chase more money in the open market. The Kamara deal, bit of an exception. Zeke held out. So the running back market in general, very tricky to identify. If you could get Nick Chubb for $12.5 million a year, pretty darn intriguing if you're me. Now, of course, the Browns are in a good position, but not always perfect, right? This is the downside of having a good team. Other players got to get paid too. Wyatt Teller, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, all these guys are due to get big-time money in the open market, or from the Browns themselves more likely. So juggling all 4 deals is a little bit tricky. So what should the Browns do? Should they extend Nick Chubb? Get your votes in for me in the comment section right now. Type in Y for yes, they should extend Chubb, or N for no, you don't want to pay backs at all. Is Odell Beckham Jr. the most overrated player on the Cleveland Browns? That is the topic here. Comes to us from Pro Football Network. They went through one player on each NFL team who's overrated. Their pick for Cleveland was OBJ. Now, to be fair, Beckham has not lived up to expectations in Cleveland. I think even the most truthful and diehard believers in Odell Beckham and the Browns would agree with that. He has not been as good in Cleveland as he was in New York or as he was expected to be. Now, it's not all his fault. There's been a lot of coaching turmoil in Cleveland, which happens too often, and he's also battled injury. In fact, Odell Beckham only played in 7 games last year. He was not close to being the OBJ, who at one point was viewed as one of, if not the best receiver in the NFL. But in 2020, in a very high volume, 43 targets, well, higher-ish volume for a very run-focused offense, I should say, 23 catches, 319 yards, 3 scores, not the OBJ we are used to seeing. In fact, overall in his career with the Cleveland Browns, Beckham hasn't been a top 5 receiver. On a 16-game average, which, yes, does include some games he got hurt in the middle of, but close as we can do to make it 16 games, 122 targets, 67 receptions for 942 yards and 5 scores. That's his average for a season. That is not top 5, top 10 receiver production. It's simply not. Now, a lot of it, I think, rightfully has been blamed against previous coaching staffs and how the offense started to click after Beckham got hurt. We'll get more into that in depth here momentarily. But it's not nearly as good as what OBJ was doing as a member of the Giants. His 16-game average, which for the record, heavily inflated by an unreal start to his NFL career, a very nice 169 targets, 106 receptions, nearly 1,500 yards, that's insane, and 12 touchdowns on average. The reality is Beckham, there's been a bit of a troubling trend going in the wrong directions. Here's his yards per target by year. Now, again, not all his fault. There's quarterback, offensive line scheme that also gets an impact there. But these 5 numbers are the 5 worst of OBJ's career. 2 of his worst years have come in Cleveland. 7.4 and 7.8 yards per target is far lower than you would ever expect out of OBJ on the Browns. So as it relates to OBJ being overrated, I want you guys to be honest here, and we'll try to make it based on how the national media views him, which is always tricky. But how do you think OBJ is rated? Is he overrated, underrated, or is he properly rated? Type in O for over, U for under, or type in P for no, he's pretty properly rated. Get your votes in the comments section right now. I did want to spend some time, by the way, kind of clapping back at some of the national media of, oh, Odell Beckham, the Browns were better without him. The Browns were better last year once OBJ got hurt, and the offense was better down the stretch. But I have long believed this, that the main reason for that was the entire offense finally started to kind of figure out how things are best operated under Kevin Stefanski. The chemistry started to click, and the offense was better down the stretch, not because of OBJ, but because the entire unit finally figured it out. So I have very high expectations for OBJ this year. I'm thinking he should probably be a top 10 or borderline top 10 receiver this season. And for the Browns, they need Odell Beckham. The trade rumors seemingly never stop, but they don't make sense for Cleveland. If you were to move Odell Beckham, or if you were like, yeah, we don't need OBJ or whatever, you're left with Jarvis Landry, Rashad Higgins, and Anthony Schwartz, Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's fine as your receivers 2 through 5, but Landry's not a wide receiver 1. I don't trust Higgins or DPJ or Schwartz yet to be a wide receiver 2, so why would I bail on OBJ? Look, I don't know where Odell Beckham at this stage of his NFL career, having not seen peak OBJ for being honest, a couple years now, I don't know where he ranks among NFL receivers. So maybe he's overrated, but I still think he's a great football player. Speaking of among receivers, folks, let me know in the comments section. Where would you rank Odell Beckham among all the NFL wide receivers? Is he 5, 10, 15, even lower? Get your votes in for me right now in the comments section.